A quick warning, the story you're about to hear may contain swearing and adult themes, so keep that in mind if you have kids around who you would prefer not to expose to such profanity. The bell rings and I hoof it down the hill. I get home for my first weekend to take in the island, to take in my new life, to take in the fact that I've only lived here for a night and my apartment is already messy. This is my first real place, the first place where the bills will be arriving in my name. It would be mature of me to take care of my space, but I'm already off to a bad start. I'd unpacked last night and left my luggage gaping open with clothes strewn around the edges. Then, this morning, I swept out of the door without looking back. Now, in the soft glow of the evening, I'm forced to face the chaos of my unnecessary haste. In terms of physical baggage, I didn't bring much to Korea. A few shirts, a couple pairs of pants, the ill-fitting suit I wore to prom 5 years ago, and a few things to wear during the weekend. Somehow, that alone has managed to make my apartment look bombed out and depleted. After hanging my clothes, stocking my cupboards with snacks from home, and figuring out how to use the rice cooker, I sit on my bed to take stock of the room. I have a TV, 2 fridges, one unplugged, a cupboard, clothes rack, washer, drying rack, and some chairs. I have 1 pillow, stained a brownish yellow from years of use by sweaty strangers, and 1 blanket. The blanket is soft. I feel angelic. All in all, with my things organized, I think I can do well here. I finish my smokes and head downstairs for a new pack. It's quiet on the island. The port is on the other side of the mountain across the street. I can hear the waves crash against the concrete. I've never lived by the ocean before. The air is salty and cool. On the side of the mountain directly across the street from my apartment is a church. Propped atop the chapel, they have erected a giant stone Jesus. His arms are open and welcoming. He looks like Buddy Christ from Dogma. Giant stone Jesus looks down on me and judges my Marlboros. He hates that I'm drunk before 8 p.m. Giant stone Jesus is not the same as Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth was supposedly the Son of God. GSJ is a big, unfeeling piece of rock. He is the overseer of our great apartment complex. He is very judgmental. Sometimes, when nobody's looking, he yawns without covering his mouth, and at times he uncrosses his legs while sitting. I wonder if Jesus of Nazareth would be considered Christian in the modern sense. I mean, after all, he was homies with prostitutes and the like. A car door slams around the corner and I jump. Giant stone Jesus has had enough of my shit. He's sending door slammers to remind me of my place. I spend the rest of the night watching NBA updates, drinking glasses of duty-free rum, and watching old episodes of The Big Bang Theory. Towards the end, I get a Skype call from my friend D-Mac. He tells me he'll come visit me the next day. I haven't seen him in a year since I crashed on his couch back in 2012. After we hang up, I forget to brush my teeth and fall asleep. D-Mac arrives in the afternoon. It's nice to see someone I've known for longer than a week. We go to Loteria and order hamburgers. He's been here for a few months, so he handles the complexity of ordering off a numbered menu. D-Mac hasn't changed much since I last saw him in Toronto. He's still tall, lanky, skinny, and physiologically Semitic. He looks like the type of guy who would say chutzpah or chavdallah if wearing the right outfit. He orders some cheese sticks and I approve. One of the main reasons I chose this island over the others was because the Google image search came up with the image of a tower. It was a tower that looked like the Seattle Needle, and in comparison to searches of other islands which returned results of dried fish and beaches covered in broken glass, it made the place look a bit modern. Around 8 o'clock, after we'd consumed enough alcohol and conversation to feel bored with each other, we begin our trip up the tower. It's dark, and because we don't know where we're going, the hike takes about 50 minutes. Halfway up, we find a plank of wood hanging from a thick branch above. I suppose one might consider it a kind of swing, but in the twilight hours of my first Saturday on the island, it looks more like a fun way to end my life. When we get to the top, we stare down at the town. We stare at the cove with the tiny island nestled in. We stare at the bridge, or the silhouette of it, across the sea. This is my home, and I'm really starting to realize it now. As we crack another beer, we're approached by 2 students of mine who I'd only met briefly in that first period class. From what I can tell, they work security at the tower. They're taller than us and bigger than us, and I'm not sure if we're allowed to be up there as the lights have gone out, but they don't seem to mind too much. These kids don't speak English, but as of right now, they're pretty mild-mannered. With the use of some broken Google Translate, they ask if they can hang out. Our conversation is choppy. They tell me they like Bon Jovi, so we listen to It's My Life a few times. They say something about Mick Jagger, and I'm unsure whether or not Korea is living in the same year as us. DMAC looks up how to say porn star on his smartphone, but he never tells me why. At the bottom of the mountain, we run into Sophia and Emmy, the only two other foreigners on the island. As we part ways with the kids, they show us to the nearest bar. It's 2 floors high, and we take to the roof so that we can smoke in the open air. I don't really know them that well, but Sophia and Emmy promised to give me a tour of the town the next weekend. I lie and tell them that I'm going to visit DMAC. This is the first he's heard of it, but he plays it right. So, you know that thing I said about moving to Korea because I had no friends here and I wanted to be alone? Well, obviously I lied. DMAC is a homie from high school. We planned to come here together, but for one reason or another, he was able to get here before I was, though he was working in a hagwon pretty close to Seoul, whereas I was where I was. And where I was a place where you are guaranteed to run into students no matter where you are during the weekend. Most teachers that I worked with would flee the island as soon as the weekend would come around. And for that reason, they would never actually see the students that are around the island. But for me, I lived there, so as soon as I stepped out of my house, I was within 5 minutes walking distance from any number of students that are, dicking around. There were so many times I would see some of my students just fishing. Other times I would see students straight up causing havoc and chaos, and especially when I just got there, I didn't know what to do about it, so I just kind of had to nod and tell them to stop, and if they didn't, walk on by. Now that I've been living in a city for a while, even though it's not a big city, it's much bigger than the island I was living on, and it's still it's like a rarity. Like back in the day, seeing a teacher in public, I don't know if wherever you grew up, I don't know if it was like this for you, but for me, definitely, if I saw a teacher outside of school, that was an event, and I would tell everybody, I would text everybody, I would message everybody, and be like, yo, I saw this guy walking down the street, and they would just be like, no, that's not possible. But there, it was like, you don't even know, if you go to a restaurant, you're probably at one of your students' restaurants. If you go to a corner store, you probably know the son of the owner of the corner store. It's just that type of place. Now, personally for me, I didn't feel like it was that big of a deal, but when I started talking to a lot of my co-workers, they would just be like, yeah, you have no privacy, everybody gossips and everybody judges, and apparently that's something that goes on. I haven't lived there for a minute, and for most of the time that I was there, I really couldn't understand that much Korean, so I couldn't be too sure, but from what I could tell, it was just like a small, close-knit place, and if you've been around close-knit societies or close-knit communities, you'll know how strong those bonds are, but also how exclusive those bonds are. Now, I don't know if you caught it, but my homie Skyped me in 2013. This was 11 years ago, so a lot of the writing is definitely outdated. I probably could have updated it, but hey, why not be honest to the fucking dickhead that I was when I wrote it? Anyways, whether or not there are any listeners, I don't know, but what I do know is that I'm having fun doing this, so if you have any stories you want to share, let me know, send them off, and I will do my best to try to work it into this, whatever the fuck this is. Anyways, take it easy, fam.